Good morning and welcome back to Fresh. I'm Julie Dilorenzo, your host for this segment, and I am at Martin's Pettin Garden Center in downtown Elkhart. They are my March pick of the month, and we're joined by John Weaver. Thank you for joining us, John. And we're going to talk about how to get ready for gardening and lawn care and all of that, planting flowers. It is spring. It's raining today, but that means that it's getting time to start our lawn care.
It won't be far behind.
Great. Well, we're going to talk about do-it-yourself programs. I know this is a great time economically for people to say, okay, I think I'm going to try and do it myself this year. What do they need to know and do to get ready to prepare their lawns?
Well, the do-it-yourself lawn programs have been around for more than 25 years, and one that we sell a lot of is the Fertilome Do-It-Yourself Lawn Program. But there's several things you have to know. You can't just go in and buy a program it's numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. You need to know some things about your lawn, or we need to know to help you design the right program.
Right.
For instance, if you plant new grass seed, well, then you don't want to use a regular crabgrass preventer because that also prevents crabgrass from coming up as well as grass seed. So you have to be aware, we have to be aware of what you're doing with your lawn this spring to know exactly what kind of program to design and write for you. And there's a lot of different kinds of programs we can do.
And I imagine that there are different kinds of grasses, so depending on the type of grass you've planted, what program they would be on.
Well, that's true also. And one thing that brings up is in shady lawns that receive a lot of shade, not a lot of sunlight, it's usually a different kind of grass. And that grass is usually a real thin and not as hardy a grass as the grass that grows in the sun. Well, consequently, you don't want to use just a regular broadleaf weed killer or like a weed and feed over those areas because that can really thin out that grass also. It's much better to use just a liquid weed killer where you just go out and spot treat. And there again, that would be a different kind of program than maybe somebody else gets that has all sunny lawn.
Now, okay, so it's March. What schedule should people think about and be on if they're going to do the do-it-yourself program?
Well, crabgrass germinates when the soil temperatures reach around 60 degrees. So a crabgrass preventer, which is usually the first feeding, needs to be put down before that crabgrass germinates from seed. Crabgrass is an annual grass, and every year it goes to seed, and then every year it comes up again. So the first feeding usually needs to go down with crabgrass preventer in it, usually around the middle of April, not March, April. And we usually say maybe around tax day because that's kind of an easy day to remember, and crabgrass kind of fits in with tax day. So that's one time that we use not a holiday, but a day that we remember to put down your first feeding. The actual time to put it down is actually when the forsythia are in full bloom. Forsythia are those shrubs that have those bright yellow flowers, and you can usually nature times it herself, and that's the time to usually put down your crabgrass preventer.
Well, one thing I want to talk about, too, is that gardens, I think, are going to be really popular this year. People want to plant their own gardens and maybe save a little money going and buying produce. They want to plant their own produce. Tell us about what we need to do to get our gardens started and how to pick a spot for that.
Well, there's several things that right. The spot is the number one thing because it needs to be sunny. It's hard to grow a garden in the shade. And if you don't have a big enough area in your yard that's sunny, a container garden on your deck maybe, or a patio might be a good place to do it. And you don't have to have a large space. You can grow a lot of vegetables in just a very, very small space. And but the one thing is that you need to pick out an area where it's kind of sunny, and also where you have access to water. Because now, if it's a small garden, you can carry water. If it's a big garden, it's good to have a hose so you can go out there and water it.
Right.
And then you need to think about the soil. If you have good soil, if not. But it doesn't matter if you have bad soil because you can always amend it. You can always add things to it. You can add organic matter to it. And you can improve that soil structure very easily so that you can grow some great vegetables.
We're running really short on time. I want to talk really quick. Tell us the quick difference between organic fertilizer and the regular fertilizer.
Well, synthetic fertilizers are a fertilizer that has a lot of salts in them. Organic fertilizers, of course, are all natural. Synthetic fertilizers, when you use those, they give the plants a feeding, and then they eventually wear out, and then you need to feed them again. Organic fertilizers feed the soil, and the soil in turn feeds the plant. So they're long-term. They work much slower. That's not a microwave fertilizer. It works much slower, but over a long period of time, it's much healthier for the environment, the lawn, animals, people's pet, and the environment.
If you could say one thing for women planting flowers in the summertime, one thing that they should do to keep them looking great all summer, what would that one tip be?
Plenty of water. If the first time you let a hanging basket or a window box run out of water, the blossoms all drop, and it takes a long time for that plant to recoup. The second thing is those small baskets don't have a lot of soil in them, and so after you water them a few times, all the food is washed through them, so you need to feed them on a regular basis. And one thing you can do, this fertilizer feeds for up to 9 months.
Oh, great.
So if you don't have time to go out there and fertilize it every week, put a fertilizer in and feed those plants, because most annuals, because they bloom all the time, are heavy feeders and need plenty of fertilizer. The other thing would be to, of course, deadhead them.
Yeah.
Some of your plants, if you cut them back after they've had their first big flush of bloom, then they'll soon come back nice and thick and bloom all over again.
All right, well, some great tips here today, folks, at Martin's Pet and Garden Center for getting your lawn started, planting a garden maybe this spring or summer, and, of course, how to keep those flowers looking great all summer. Come down and see John and his staff here at Martin's Pet and Garden. We'll be back in a moment after this short break.